Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit more technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, because in today's video, I want to discuss what's happened here on Bitcoin over the last 24 hours or so, and talk about how Bitcoin is, at least for the time being, getting support on this downtrend of support. I want to show you guys several different technical indicators and try to get to the bottom of where I think Bitcoin is going to be going here over the next couple of days. Has Bitcoin actually hit its bottom, and is Bitcoin about to continue rallying, or is Bitcoin actually going to fall down here towards price targets in between $10,500 or even as low as $9,500, as I've seen some people talking about? From there, guys, we also have to talk about the news of the day, because your boy Donald Trump is not a fan of cryptocurrency. As we can see here, he is very much not a fan of cryptocurrencies, and later on in today's video, we're going to be discussing why just about literally every single thing he said in these three tweets is factually, not opinionally, factually wrong, and we're also going to be talking about what effects those tweets might have on the Bitcoin market. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure you hit that like button. Like I said, guys, that like button's kind of a jerk, and it deserves it. Go down there, smash that like button. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, guys. And I also want to remind you that we are still running the sale on the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. There's a $40 off coupon code in the description down below, and actually this sale is going to be wrapping up in 24 hours. So if you guys want to get into the course, I highly recommend you do it now while that coupon code is still active. Anyway, guys, without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. The first thing I want to do here is catch you guys up with what's happened here over the last 24 hours or so, and we'll start looking at the outlook for Bitcoin over the next couple of days. As we know, Bitcoin crashed out of its little rising wedge here. We had some RSI divergence, which helped predict that. If you want an update on that, you can go watch yesterday's video. But from there, Bitcoin actually came down and found a level of support here on this downtrend that Bitcoin had been building over the last couple of weeks, ever since the later part of June. Bitcoin came down here and tested this, and we have, for the time being anyway, bounced, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're out of the woods yet. I do want to show you guys some technical indicators that would suggest that Bitcoin has bottomed, but I'm also going to be playing devil's advocate against those in a little bit, because as we can see, hourly chart MACD is looking very bullish ever since we had our bottom right down over here. We had our change in direction, the reversal on the histogram right over here at about 1600 hours Eastern time on the 10th. Ever since then, MACD has been converging bullish on itself, and then, of course, cross bullish. And I also want to point out something that we talked about in yesterday's video. That would be an RSI divergence. As we can see, Bitcoin is making lower lows here on the chart, but we're also making higher lows here on the RSI. That is called classical RSI divergence, and it's a very bullish sign. As we discussed in yesterday's video, when we saw some RSI divergence right here, we saw some higher highs right there on the chart and lower lows right here on the RSI. RSI divergence is a classical indication that you're about to see some kind of reversal, and it's normally going to be respected. RSI divergence very rarely gets ignored by the market. It's almost always going to result in some kind of price action. It's very rare that I see RSI divergence and I don't see some kind of move to accompany it in the way that it would predict. So keep an eye out for that. RSI divergence here on the hourly chart may indicate bullishness for the next 12, 24, 36 hours, something like that. After about 36 hours from now, that's really going to be kind of tapering off in its importance, since it is down here on the hourly chart, but it is something you should be aware of. Because as you can see, the RSI divergence disappears on the 4-hourly chart. So that may be predicting bullishness for around the next 24 hours or so. But keep in mind that that's not going to push Bitcoin to all-time high or anything. That's kind of a shorter-term trend. One thing that is slightly longer-term is the fact that MACD has started converging bullish on itself and has been for the last 12 hours. We're probably going to see a cross bullish today for Bitcoin. And we did see an engulfing candlestick right here as a bullish bounce here on the level of support that Bitcoin was testing about 12 hours ago. Somewhere around midnight Eastern time, we saw this engulfing candlestick. You can see that's engulfing because the green candlestick is bigger than the red one. That's normally a pretty bullish sign of a bounce, but that's also not necessarily indicative of a major bounce. It is just something that you normally see at the bottom of a trend when Bitcoin or another market has hit a level of support. That's also something that we talk about in the course here with Introduction to a Candlestick Analysis, and where we talk about 6 different types of candlestick formations that you will see on the charts. An engulfing candlestick, a bullish engulfing candlestick like that, is most certainly one of them. And we're going to keep it brief here, guys, but I do want to point out that on the daily chart, Bitcoin is still bearish. So even though we're seeing a little bit of bullish signs here on the 4-hourly and the hourly chart, it is possible that Bitcoin has a short-term bounce. There's also a pretty strong likelihood that Bitcoin does continue lower from here, and that's one of the reasons that I want to kind of define where we are right now as kind of a no trade zone. The technical analysis is contradicting itself a little bit. We're seeing bullish signs and we're seeing bearish signs. If you look purely at the technical analysis and you don't take into account previous experience that may be affecting the way you're looking at the market, as mine is, and in market sentiment, then you might say that based on the technical analysis, Bitcoin should have a bounce up to maybe $12,000 to $12,500 and then continue to the downside if it can't maintain that. That's pretty much what the TA would say. But guys, I would like to postulate that we are in fact in what I would call a no trade zone, simply because Bitcoin has a lot of things going on right now. There are a lot of technical indicators that are contradicting themselves. We have bullishness, bearishness. We have stuff with a new downtrend when we should be in a rally. We have a lot of fundamentals changing. We have this news from Donald Trump that is probably going to cause a bit of a FUD crash later on today. That news did break relatively late last night, so a lot of people were asleep when he tweeted that out. There's a lot of things going on Bitcoin right now, and it's difficult to make a very precise prediction right now. So I want to show you guys something that you can do when you are working in these markets and you're not totally sure what Bitcoin's going to do, because I'm not as confident on what Bitcoin's going to do right now as I would have been a month ago. I was pretty confident a month ago that Bitcoin was going to continue rallying, and then right around the time that we had the crash, I was getting pretty confident that Bitcoin was going to have a crash and that it was overextended. Right now, I'm not as confident in either direction, and a lot of times, especially if you're not an expert, like an amazing world-class technical analyst, that's going to happen to you a lot. So here's what you want to do in those situations. You can define the area around the market that you're looking at as a no trade zone, and you can, instead of trading it and instead of looking for a trade, what you can do is watch the market and wait for the market to do something, and then after the market does that thing, then you can use that as a learning experience. There's always three things you can do in a market. You can buy, you can sell, you can long, you can short. Those, of course, being two things because that's synonymous. Or you can instead sit back and watch the market. So you can buy or long, you can sell or short, or you can sit back and watch the market and learn and gain some more experience. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not trading this market. I'm going to give it a couple days to develop until a clear trend builds, because Bitcoin looked like it was entering a new uptrend recently. In fact, it didn't. We did see a crash here, and Bitcoin very well may continue to the upside, but I'm not totally convinced yet that the bulls are in power, considering we saw this bearish crash. So this really could go either way. I'm going to sit back, I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to learn. In a video a while back, I said that when victory is an option, but so too is loss, sometimes the best move is to not move at all. And that's kind of a poetic way, I guess you would say, of talking about what I'm saying here. If you think that you could win, but there's also a chance that you could lose in your trade, instead of taking either position, sit back, learn from the market, and see what you can see. Watch the market develop, see how it develops. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much going to do it for today's technical analysis, so I do want to go ahead and dive on into this news coming out of Trump. We're going to be doing a little bit more TA later on in the video, but I want to discuss this for now. We're over here on Twitter. If you guys don't know, I do have a Twitter account, and I'm going to start being a lot more active on it. There's a link to that in the description down below, at CryptoJeb. You can go follow me over there. But Donald Trump over here finally explained what his position is on Bitcoin, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this. And guys, this is really interesting because I was talking about exactly what we're seeing here today 2 years ago when I got into the space. One of the first opinions I had in the space was what the U.S. government's opinion of Bitcoin was going to be. And it's very interesting because now that Bitcoin is more developed, exactly what I was saying has come to pass. Donald Trump says, "I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity." Now, guys, because you are part of the cryptocurrency space, you probably already know that literally every single word of that was factually inaccurate, but for fun, we're going to go through it word by word and explain why it's factually inaccurate, because I think it'd be pretty fun to do. He says, "I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies." That's an opinion. He's more than welcome to his own opinion, but he also says, "which are not money." Bitcoin, by definition, is money. If we look over here on Google, then we can read three of the functions of money. There's basically three functions of money, and if something fulfills these three functions, then it is money. Money is often defined of the three functions or services that it provides. Money serves as a medium of exchange, which Bitcoin very clearly serves as a medium of exchange. A couple dozen of you guys have bought the course in Bitcoin, so very clearly it is a medium of exchange. It's a store of value. In fact, it's a pretty dang good store of value. I think history has proven that. And as a unit of account, I mean, you can check your accounts and figure out exactly how much Bitcoin you have. You can figure out how much value you are holding because it is a unit of account. Bitcoin, by definition, is money. It might not be the money he likes, but it is factually money. That is simply incorrect, Donald. And whose value is highly volatile? That's true. Bitcoin is highly volatile. But you also have to understand that the US dollar is, what, 250 nearly years old? It's not, and it's still quite volatile. Inflation is like 3% a year. Bitcoin is very volatile, but Bitcoin only turned 10 earlier this year. Give it a couple decades and Bitcoin won't be as volatile. In fact, I'm pretty happy that Bitcoin's volatile right now because there's a lot of money that you can make in it. But a couple decades down the line, when Bitcoin is more well adopted, that volatility will start to subside and it will start to go away in the same way that stock markets are not anywhere near as volatile as cryptocurrency markets are. A big part of that has to do because there's a lot of adoption coming into Bitcoin and also because the market capitalization is very small, so whales can very easily cause major swings in Bitcoin. That's going to change as time goes on. Furthermore, he states, and is based on thin air. Also completely incorrect. Bitcoin is not based on thin air. It is based on the internet. I mean, it's on the cloud, but that doesn't mean it's based on thin air. Bitcoin instead is based on a blockchain. A blockchain is basically a very complicated mathematical equation that is able to prove who has Bitcoin, who doesn't have that Bitcoin, who is allowed to transact that Bitcoin because they have the private key to that Bitcoin. Bitcoin is based on math. It is not based on thin air. Moving right along here, guys, we have even a little bit more to unpack, and we're not even going to get into the two tweets below this because that's not even having to do really with Bitcoin. But he also says unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Guys, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, Bitcoin is unregulated, and first of all, it's not unregulated. And second of all, if it were to be considered unregulated, that's because it's a very young cryptocurrency, it's a very young industry, and there will be more regulation leveled against it. Second of all, you're the president of the United States. If you got a problem with it being unregulated, I think that you, of all people, are in a position to fix that. And he also says that crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior. I would very much disagree with that. I don't think Bitcoin facilitates unlawful behavior at all. If there was any kind of unlawful behavior being facilitated by Bitcoin, the only place I would say that that is true is in paying your taxes with Bitcoin. And that's not because Bitcoin is facilitating unlawful behavior. That's because the tax code around Bitcoin and trading Bitcoin is so convoluted that even a lawyer couldn't follow it. That's the only way that I would agree with you there. And that's not Bitcoin's fault. That's the IRS's fault. So don't go blaming Bitcoin for being unlawful or facilitating unlawful behavior because it's not true. And this last one that he says is something that really rubs me the wrong way, and I hate when people say this. He says, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Guys, people that aren't in the cryptocurrency market are of the opinion that because Bitcoin is not actually minted by a government, that you can't track it. Guys, literally every single transaction that has ever happened in the history of Bitcoin on the blockchain can be recorded. You can go and look at it. The entire blockchain, if you have a wallet on your computer, you have the entire history of Bitcoin on your computer. You may not realize it, but literally every single transaction that has ever happened in the history of Bitcoin is on your computer. Now, actually, it's not necessarily because a lot of wallets don't record the entire blockchain, but it's not very hard if you have even a modicum of understanding about how to look into the history of the blockchain and you know whose addresses belong to who, and I will give that to you. That is sometimes a difficulty. You can go back and you can record every single transaction that has ever transpired on the cryptocurrency of Bitcoin. So that is another thing that's just simply not true. Bitcoin does not facilitate unlawful behavior. And guys, it doesn't even make a whole lot of sense for Bitcoin to be used for unlawful behavior because every single transaction that's ever happened in Bitcoin can be tracked. You know what would make a much easier way to transact illegally? How about paper cash like the US dollar? Or even, for that matter, something like gold. I mean, there's so many better ways to transact illegally than in Bitcoin. You can track Bitcoin very, very easily. Now, you can track US dollars, but the other thing is it's much easier to launder US dollars than it is to launder Bitcoin. And you may bring up transacting Bitcoin into Monero and then transacting it and then back. That's true. That's something the government's going to have to figure out if they want to regulate that. But Bitcoin itself is a terrible, terrible way to actually facilitate illegal behavior. Who would want to transact where every single transaction you do is public record? That's a horrible idea. That's like saying, okay, that's like saying a criminal is going to go do a drug trade or something, and they're just going to tell the government, like, hey, government, by the way, I just bought a pound of meth. That's what they're going to say? No, guys, it just doesn't make any sense. Just about every single thing he said here is either an opinion or the facts that he said are just simply wrong. I wanted to go ahead and bring that up because I know that you guys already realized that just about everything he said there was incorrect, but I thought you guys would find it interesting to go through it nevertheless. And I actually tweeted about this on my Twitter. If you guys are interested, you can follow me on Twitter at CryptoJeb. I'm going to start becoming a lot more active here. In this tweet, there's something I talked about here a little bit on Twitter, and I didn't really dive too much into it because I wanted to talk about it in this video, and that is back in 2017 when I got into the market and I started learning about cryptocurrencies. One of the first things that popped into my head is what the U.S. government was going to do about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is very clearly a threat to the United States dollar. I think we all realize that, including Trump. He's not a fan of it because he loves the U.S. dollar, and guys, I kind of get that. He's the United States president. He has to be on the side of the U.S. dollar. I get that. but at the same time, I don't agree with it. Back in 2017, I realized that eventually Bitcoin is going to get to the point where it's a large enough industry and that it's a big enough threat to the U.S. government that the U.S. government is going to have to make a decision. Is it going to be on the side of Bitcoin, or is it going to be against Bitcoin? Is the U.S. government going to like Bitcoin because of the economic benefits that it's going to bring, and because we don't want Russia or China or one of our other quote-unquote enemies, I mean, we all like to pretend we're friends, but our quote-unquote enemies, to get this technology and start running with it and start taking advantage of it while we get left in the dust? Is the United States government going to realize that? Or is the United States government instead going to try to crack down on Bitcoin and try to stop people from using Bitcoin, or in general just be anti-Bitcoin because they don't want Bitcoin to threaten the global hegemony of the United States dollar? Which side is that going to take? And I remember saying that whichever party is involved, whichever party controls Congress and controls the presidency, or at least one of them, if they have a strong majority in the Congress or a strong majority in the presidency, I mean, not a strong majority in the presidency, but they have the presidency, that party is probably not going to be pro-Bitcoin because they're going to be the ones that are basically in control of the United States dollar. Instead, you're probably going to see the minority party, in this case the Democrats, be more happy with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because they can use that as a platform against the party that's in charge. Because the party that's in charge is not going to be pro something that threatens their hegemony, and the minority party can use that as a tool to actually attack the other party with. And guys, I really don't think there's there's not really a precedent for this on whether the Democrats or the Republicans are going to agree or disagree with Bitcoin. It looks like the Democrats are kind of liking Bitcoin, the Republicans are kind of disliking Bitcoin, but it's very vague. We haven't really seen that develop a whole lot. And by the way, guys, I'm not voicing any political opinions in this video. If you picked up on anything pro or anti-Trump or pro or anti-Republican or Democrat, that was completely your imagination, because I've leveled no opinions in this video other than this specific tweet in isolation. I think it's completely wrong. That is not an opinion on Trump in the slightest. But guys, no matter what happens here over the next couple of years, the United States government and many other governments are going to start becoming much more active in the cryptocurrency space. They're going to try to regulate it a whole lot more. They're going to start voicing opinions on it. They're going to start either telling their citizens that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are a good thing and that they're going to be good for the economy, or they're going to try to destroy Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because they see them as a threat. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that cookie crumbles and which governments decide that they're going to be on the side of Bitcoin and, honestly, on the side of the future, because I don't think Bitcoin's going anywhere, and if they are going to be anti-Bitcoin like Trump seems to want the United States to be. To wrap the video up here, guys, I want to go ahead and discuss for a second about what impacts this tweet from Trump may have, and I'll be very brief and say I don't think it's going to have one iota of impact on Bitcoin, even in the slightest. This is not a fundamental change. It's one tweet. It's less than 200 characters of Donald Trump being Donald Trump and talking on Twitter. You guys know he likes to go to Twitter. That's what Trump's going to do. He likes tweeting on Twitter. That's just the way he is. Like him or hate him, that's what he does, and it's really not going to make a big change to Bitcoin, in my opinion, just because he went out and said that he doesn't like Bitcoin. I really don't think it's the end of the world that he said that. It's not going to cause anything to happen fundamentally, at least not yet. Congress hasn't passed hardly anything in relation to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and honestly, I don't think they're going to for the next couple of years. By the time that Congress decides that it hates Bitcoin, or that the sitting president at the time decides that they hate Bitcoin, by the time that even happens, if it does happen, Bitcoin's going to be far too large to stop. Bitcoin is already a multi-hundred billion dollar industry. If you were to try to stop Bitcoin, there's only one way you can do it, and you would have to do it through a 51% attack. To do that would cost hundreds of billions of dollars in mining, in electricity fees, in organization, in structure, and we would see it coming from a mile away. Because how in the world would the government stop us from knowing that it was trying to perform a 51% attack on Bitcoin? It wouldn't. The only organization on the planet that could do anything to stop Bitcoin, even for the time being, would be one of the major superpowers on the planet, like the United States or maybe China if they tried. You would have to see a major amount of money go into mining for them to try to perform a 51% attack, and I still don't think that's feasible. I don't think that's possible. I'm just giving you guys an example of how it, even in a crazy world scenario, could even possibly happen. There's no way for the United States to stop Bitcoin, even if they tried. I don't care how powerful they are. The military is useless. The economy is useless. They can't do anything to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. The future is very bright. They can regulate it all they want, but I'm sitting in Colorado, and obviously the government trying to regulate things doesn't normally go over so well, considering how much weed there is in this town. Guys, I think Bitcoin has a very bright future ahead of it, even if for the next couple of days we may see some more bearishness. Tell me in the comment section down below what what you think of that tweet from Trump. Like I said, guys, there were no political opinions voiced in this video. This is a completely apolitical channel, so if you picked up on any of that, if you picked up on a pro-Republican or pro-Democrat bias, you were completely imagining that. I do want to go ahead and make that clear because I really don't want another firestorm in the comments because I already know there's going to be one. I don't want to be a part of it. Anyway, guys, like I said, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. I do hope you did enjoy today's video, and like I said, remember that we are still running that sale on the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. That is going to be running through the rest of today. If you guys are interested in joining with that $40 off coupon code, I do highly recommend you get in now before the sale ends by this time tomorrow. Anyway, guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.